Hi everyone, Ghost Peppa here. So you guys have seen the deck breakdown video, so let's take a look at the combos. This is a pretty good starting hand, and in this deck, most of your combos are going to synergize between the Despians and the Darklords, but your primary normal summon is usually going to be a Luber. So when you normal summon a Luber, his effect allows you to search a branded spell or trap and add it to your hand. You usually always use this to search the theater of the branded, but since we already have it in hand, I can either grab another branded opening, so that way I can pitch both of them to summon a Despian to the field. I can also banish them from the grave whenever they try to Regeki one of my fusion summons. Or I can go ahead and grab Branded in Red or Branded Banishment for some interruption on my opponent's turn. So the first Darklord, which is always going to be your first fusion summon, requires 3 dark fairy monsters. So looking at that, we have a light, a dark, and a dark. So I'm definitely going to need to use Branded Opening, but Kristya can be in grave. So let's make sure we have plenty of room for follow-up, and let's go ahead and pull Branded Banishment to our hand. Now we're going to activate Despia, Theater of the Branded, the field spell, and just because it's a quick effect, we'll go ahead and chain Branded Opening. Now with Branded Opening, we can pitch Kristya, as I said, and then we can summon a Despian. So in this case, we're going to do Dramaturge of Despia because we are not going to be able to special summon anything from the extra deck other than a fusion since we used Branded Opening, and this will give us some potential interruption during their turn. So we're going to now proceed to fusion summon the first Darklord. Since we are going first, we do want to fusion summon him into defensive position just as a precaution against things like Lightning Storm, and he is 4k attack and defense, so it just makes no sense to summon him in attack. We had 3 Despians in hand, and this is pretty rare because usually you'll have some Darklords mixed in, but each Despian has a special effect that they can utilize. Now, when ad libitum is used as fusion material, I can target one of my Despians that are in the graveyard or banished, other than ad libitum himself, and I can special summon it to the field. Currently, the only valid targets in the graveyard are Dramaturge of Despia, which is getting ready to special summon itself, or a Luber. Now, a Luber has a grave effect that when one of your fusion monsters is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, he can special summon himself and negate the effects of one card on the field, so I'd like to keep him there for interruption. Because of this, we're just not going to activate ad libitum. We don't need the first Darklord's effect yet, so we will continue with our special summoning of Dramaturge. And then we can set Branded Banishment. Not only is this an in-archetype super poly, but it also has some removal as it banishes cards from the field for a fusion, or I can just use it to res a fusion from the grave that was removed. So now we can go ahead and chain the first Darklord. I can special summon any of these cards to field, so we can go ahead and summon ad libitum. He doesn't normally get summoned like this in most decks that use Despians, but in this case, you can chain his effect and then boost all of your fairies on the field, and this gives Dramaturge just a little more staying power as he's now 3800 attack, and this will last until the end of your opponent's turn. So then we'll pass our turn over, and then at this point we have 2 options. We can immediately chain the first Darklord's effect to summon a fairy of my choosing from the graveyard, or I still have Branded Banishment, which I can use to get into Masquerade or anything like that. So here I'm going to chain the first Darklord, and we can summon one of our fairies from the grave. So we have 2 options. Option 1, I can summon a Luber and do a search during my opponent's turn, which is one benefit of running the Darklord and the Despian line together. Or I can summon Archlord Kristya, which prevents any special summons. So this would fully lock out our opponents, and then they would not be able to expand their board without removing Kristya. In the current meta where we have a lot of Tearlaments and Sprites, this is a good option, and I can summon it, and essentially they're just full locked out. So here we have a very different hand. In this case, we don't have all the fairies we want, and we're going second, so we'll see what we draw first. And we got Banishment of the Darklords. This lets me search any Darklord card from deck to hand, so this is actually a pretty good option. And that includes all spells, traps, or monsters in the Darklord lineup. If they have Ash, you would know at this point. I am going to pull Superbia to hand. So Ixchel can send any Darklord card to grave to draw 2. I can send Superbia, I can send Contact, etc. So right now, I'm going to use her effect to send Superbia to draw 2. And we're drawing a lot of our spells and traps, which this can happen, but this isn't super ideal. So we're going to use Contact. And I'm going to revive Superbia. Notice it is Chainlink 1, like I discussed in the previous video. When it's Chainlink 1, I can then chain, special summon. Then we can chain Ixchel, banishment, and I can add from my deck to the hand any of the Darklords. So in this case, I'm going to add Morningstar, and we'll show you the board blowout. So you can only use one of the first Darklord's effects per turn, so if I use the board blowout, I won't be able to special summon more fairies from grave to use for link material, XyZ, etc. So it's completely safe to use branded opening to get another Despian on the field like Dramaturge, because I'm not going to be able to expand. And I'm going to send Darklord Rebellion. Now a lot of these spells and traps, you can use them from the field, but it's better suited to being grave, because then cards like Ixchel can activate it as a quick effect. So we will send it. We are going to add to our hand Dramaturge in this case, and you can special summon, that's fine. Okay, now we are going to fusion summon the first Darklord using Morningstar, Dramaturge, and Superbia into attack. So on entry, we go ahead and chain the first Darklord's effect, and then just follow it with Dramaturge to special summon. Now in this case, they have a Super Poly prepped and ready. So he is going to Super Poly away the first Darklord, which is a non-targeting spell. This will get around the first Darklord's target protection since it does not target, but the board wipe is still in the stack, so will go off nonetheless. The only one that's going to be immune is Winda, which Winda cannot be destroyed by opponent's card effects. Since they're playing Shadal, they choose to use Dragon to blow up the field spell. Most decks are going to target your field spell, so this is a common occurrence, and unfortunately we don't have easy access to get it back right now, and this is going to prevent us from dealing in OTK. We do have plenty of interruption that we can set, so we'll just set that, go ahead and clear the board, and as you can see, Shadal has a lot of recursion, so they're just adding another fusion for next turn. But I'm going to show you something that is tons of fun for us and not fun for them. Remember to toggle on. Okay, so immediately, the second it enters draw phase, I'm going to chain Eradicator Epidemic Virus. I'm going to tribute Dramaturge, and I'm going to call spells because you saw they added a spell to hand. And then, also, we're not going to do anything yet, so we can look through their hand. That's the other benefit of having Eradicator. So I can see they have some zombies in hand, so they're playing some version of Zombie Shadal. Okay, now that that is resolved, we're going to Chainlink 1, activate Ixchel to send Darklord Contact back to the deck to revive a Darklord from the grave. So just for an example, I'm going to show you what happens when you revive Darklord Superbia. If you chain this using Ixchel, you will miss timing because the last thing to resolve was shuffling to the deck and not the special summon. Because of this, you block yourself and miss timing. This is another niche way to miss timing, so just make sure you remember this. Now, of course, we have branded in red set, so I can easily add back Dramaturge, and I can special summon any of these monsters to the field. So I can go into the first Darklord. Now remember, it does banish these, so I would be removing them from play. Or I could go into something like courteous. So in this case, I think it's going to be best to go first Darklord so we have some counterplay. So we're going to use 1, 2, 3. And we will do the first Darklord in defense. Okay, Dramaturge can resummon. And so even through their super poly, this is all during their turn, we completely wipe through them. Now I can chain the first Darklord, and I can summon the first Darklord. And whenever you special summon something from the extra deck, it will ask you if you want to activate Dramaturge's effect, even if it's yours. Draw a card. It's an Ixchel. Now, the first Darklord, he can activate to special summon a fairy from grave, which this one is not able to be special summoned, so that can't happen. Or I can special summon a card from hand, in this case Ixchel. So we're going to do that. We're going to special summon Ixchel. We're going to chain Ixchel's effect. We're going to use Darklord Rebellion. And then I can just pop their card on the field. This is what I meant by using those traps and spells from the grave. From here, I can go into any of my Link monsters like Condemned Darklord, IP Masquerena, but it's just not needed because they have 0 gas. We have 2 the first Darklords. We've definitely got this duel. Okay, so this, again, we're going second, but this is a very different hand as well. We have Superbia, we have Kristya, we have Sark, and we have Called By, and we have Banishment. So we draw Rebellion, which is sort of mid. That's not really what we're looking for. First, I'm going to chain, well, not chain, but activate Gold Sarcophagus. So when you activate Gold Sarcophagus, you're always going to be sending Despian Tragedy. The reason this is one, I mean, you're going to get it back eventually in a few turns. But when it's banished, it lets me add to hand any of the Despians, which I'm going to add my Aluber. Normal summon Aluber, trigger effect. Herald of Orange Light is chained to that. Now, I have Called By here, so I'm definitely going to Called By that to stop it. But this just shows a good example. Aluber and your Fusion Summon, those are your very high vulnerability states when you're building your board. So you absolutely have to guard that at all costs. So it's best to try to bait things out before you get into them. Okay, and at this point we'll add Despian Theater of the Branded. Activate. Banishment of the Darklords, and we're going to add us a lovely Ixchel to hand. So now I'm going to activate Ixchel. We're going to send Rebellion to grave. I can send a trap too like that. So here I have branded opening, so I can always pitch Kristya, get Dramaturge, and go the same line I went in the last duel. But I really want to show you guys some of the things you can dip into from the extra deck, so I'm not going to use that. And we'll just use one of our Alubers from hand as fusion material, even though it's a little bit wasteful. So we're going to summon the first Darklord, and we're going to use Superbia, Aluber, and Aluber. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to activate the first Darklord's effect. We will summon Superbia. Activate effect. We will then summon Ixchel. Okay. Then we will chain Ixchel's effect. Banishment. And here, we can add some other options to our hand. So I can go Darklord Contact. And so let's build it up. We're going to go ahead and go into our Condemned Darklord. And then we're going to use Contact. Remember, Superbia is not once per turn. But some of the Darklords, this is a good point to bring up, can only be special summoned once per turn. So for example here, Ixchel, she was already special summoned once, I can't do it again. But none of the Despians have that limit, so that's why they're good techs to have in. So I can go ahead and summon another Aluber out. Then I can discard a card, take a Darklord monster from the deck, and add it to the hand or send it to the graveyard, so we will do that. We will go ahead and we will send Kristya to grave. And we will add to hand our Tezcatlipoca. So this card just If a Darklord monster will be destroyed by battle or card effect, I can just discard this. So this is something that can be res, it's a level 9, I can use it to build up my board, but aside from that, it just protects the field. So we'll do that. Now, I can go ahead and go into IP, etc., but since we're going to go ahead and go into battle, let's do that first. And realistically, I could have ended it here by branded opening into ad libitum. And then ad libitum could have attacked boosted, but we're not going to worry about that because we're going to show some fun stuff. Okay. So we'll go into IP. Alright, and we'll pass turn. Condemn Darklord will gain me life points based on those two, so I will gain 1,000. So, Darklord's decks, you're constantly paying and gaining life points, which is why that link is important. Remember, now they chained an effect. I can chain the first Darklord off of that, but I do not want to. Because if I do, because granted I was definitely going to summon Superbia, it would miss timing. Now that that card is officially on the field, and I can start my own chain, I will start my chain, summon Superbia, trigger Superbia's effect, and then I will bring out really pretty much any of them, but in this case I'm going to bring out a Luber just to show this chain. So I'll bring out a Luber. When a Luber is on the field, I can then use his ability to search out any of my other cards. In this case, we'll do a branded banishment. Okay, they brought out the Agent of Mystery, so in this case I'm going to go ahead and shotgun our Masquerena into Underworld Goddess using that, Masquerena, Superbia, and Aluber. If they had more cards on the field, you would get more gas from this because you would blanket negate, but also this gives me a grave negate. Again, we have another field spell destruction, but that's something we're used to. Here we draw Dramaturge of Despia, so that'll be nice to extend into more fusions. So we'll go ahead and start, same thing. First Darklord, chain effect. Superbia. Trigger Superbia's effect. Aluber. So this is the good thing about the Darklord line. It doesn't matter that we only have 2 Alubers, I just keep bringing them back every turn and searching. So they popped 1 field spell, let's just grab another. Activate, use the effect. Now I can go into any of the Despian fusions, but I can actually use Chimera here. Chimera, if he is fusion summon using a spell card, I can draw cards and pop cards. This is not usually seen in the Albaz engine or the branded engine, but you can run this and use it to trigger off Chimera's effect. So let's actually just do that. So we will use Superbia, and we will use Dramaturge, and we will use Aluber. Trigger effect, chain block, Dramaturge. Draw, pop, pop. So with this hand, we definitely are limited. We do have 2 field spells, so if they pop one, we have access to another one immediately. We don't have access to all the fairies we need to go right into the first Darklord, but we'll go ahead and activate one of our 2 field spells. And from here, we do have 2 key options that we can go into. So first, I can use XyZ Tragedy to fusion summon into one of the Despian fusions. When Tragedy is sent for the fusion summon, it will search out another Despian, so then I can get a Luber and pull that line. Or, remember what I was telling you guys about the Allure of Darkness pairing well with Tragedy. I can get a +3 off of this by banishing Tragedy, so then I get to draw 2 cards and I get to search a Despian from deck to hand. Which you never want to draw into another Allure, but it happens. So we'll go ahead and banish Tragedy, which Tragedy on banish triggers effect. We will add a Luber. Okay. Now here we have banishment of the Darklords, so we're going to activate it. We will. So we have a few options. So in this case, we're going to say, you know what? Let's go Indulge. So I'll show you what Indulge can do. So we will activate or summon Indulge Darklord, chain effect. So it will let me special summon to their field, and I always will go Ukobach just because it's tiny, it's easy to get rid of. And then I can add from deck to hand any of these other cards. So let's add Superbia. Okay. Now, in this case, we're going to go ahead and fusion summon the first Darklord using Ixchel, Superbia, and we could just go ahead and use Despia because we want to get some more damage on field, or Luber, I mean. So let's do it. From here, I can use the first Darklord's effect to summon more fairies, and then Super Poly another first Darklord on the field, and get pretty close to beating them down with an OTK. Or I can continue into links, etc. But let's take a look at another option. I'll start this one a little more advanced in the duel, but Superbia is a level 8, as is Nergal. So I can chain Superbia's effect to res Nergal, and then it gives me 2 level 8s. Once I have these on the field, then I just need to decide which rank 8 XyZ is going to be most beneficial to the situation. So here you can get into Hope Harbinger to save yourself from any spells that are on the field. But no matter if I choose that or the other option, which is Numeron Dragon, which is an OTK because it's going to have 9k attack as long as their board is empty, so keep that in mind. I will always go into Dragublion, that way I have just extra body on field for IP Masquerena, that's easy access. Now, another thing to keep in mind is if I do go this line with Dragublion, the card that is summoned off of Dragublion's effect is the only card that will be able to attack after this summon occurs. So you need to remember that, because if you have enough damage to do an OTK, but then you summon one singular beater, you can give your opponent a chance to completely wipe you out. So these are most of the key combos in Darklords Despia, but make sure you check out some of my Darklords videos to see what kind of things might come up. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.